Hi, welcome back to Spices by Mara. This is Mara. You know what? Today we're going to do an easy recipe, beans and rice, 5 ways. 5 different meals using the exact same ingredients, just switching out the spices. We're going to create 5 different spice profiles, and you'll be able to serve this meal to your family every week for 5 weeks, and they'll never know that you're serving them the almost exact same meal. Beans and rice is a very protein-filled meal. It has the ingredients in it that you already have in your pantry. And by using different spices, we can make it different each week. In this recipe, we are using black beans, a can of black beans. But say, oh, I used up my black beans yesterday. No worries. You could use kidney beans, or you could use cannellini beans. If you don't have any canned, here are my pinto beans. You could use pinto beans. The only difference is you can't make the recipe on the spur of the moment. You would have to soak these overnight and then cook them a little bit before you use them. Or you could use chickpeas. Again, these would have to be cooked, but I also often have cans of pinto beans and chickpeas. So you can use any beans that you want for our beans and rice. And here's how we make it. Chop up an onion, chop up a green pepper, grab some garlic, mince it up. It can be a couple small ones, it could be a large one, whatever you would like in terms of how garlicky you like your food. I usually grab one big one, maybe 3 little ones, and here we go. Here's how we are going to make our beans and rice. We are going to put the oil in. It can be any kind of oil that you want. I tend to use olive oil. Sometimes I use a flavored olive oil, like a garlic if I want it more garlicky, or if I'm making a Tuscan flavor, I might use Tuscan olive oil, whatever you want. Then I throw all my vegetables in and I just cook them. Here they go. These are just simple things. You can use a bell pepper, you could use a red pepper, you could use a yellow pepper, whatever you've got. You could use a Spanish onion, you could use a sweet onion. It's really cleaning out your pantry and seeing what you have. You know, if you had shallots, you could switch shallots up. The nice thing about this is it's so flexible and you can do whatever you really want to enhance or clean out your pantry. Now we're gonna add a can of chopped tomatoes. They could be fire roasted tomatoes, they could be plain tomatoes, they could be tomatoes that have peppers in them. If you are doing a Mexican one, it could be tomatoes that have basil in it if you want that spice profile, whatever you have. Now I'm gonna add black beans. I did not do anything but drain these. I like the extra little sauce texture that it gives me. And then I am just mixing it up and simmering. Finally, we add all of our spices, whatever spices we are adding. We'll get to that in just a minute. And then all we're going to do is we're going to make our rice. I use broth for my rice just to give it a little extra oomph to it. I use vegetable rice to I use vegetable broth to keep it so that it is vegetarian. But if you've got chicken broth, use that instead. If you don't have any broth, use water. It's not going to make that big of a difference. Put your rice on the plate, put your beans and rice on top, put any topping on that you want, and boom, your dinner is ready. And here's what it looks like. Now let's talk about all the different ways that we could mix up our spices here so that we would have a different meal every week using the basic same ingredients, maybe a little bit extras, and your family will not know that every week you're serving them beans and rice. This versatile, very simple, you saw how fast this was to put together, protein-packed meal. So the first recipe we're going to look at is a Spanish one. For the Spanish ones, the spices that I would use would be either a smoked or hot paprika, some chili powder, some cayenne pepper, and some oregano. This is Turkish oregano from Burlap and Barrel, which, as you know, is my favorite spice company. There's also Mexican oregano. And for some of these other recipes, if I had Mexican oregano, which I don't have right now, I might put that in instead. They taste slightly different, and you might want to get both and taste them and see what you think. But for now, we're going to put in what I have. So all together in each of these recipes, we want 2 or 3 teaspoons of spices. And you can sort of combination it however you want. Down in the bottom, I have listed each of these recipes with some guesstimates of what amount of spice you want to put in each one. You can add more, you can add less, you can taste as you go along. It's very, very, very much up to you of how spicy, how flavorful, how mild you want these recipes to be. So as we finish up our Spanish version, what I would add here to really emphasize the Spanish feel to it is I would add some sliced Spanish green olives. You can buy them already sliced, just pour some in a whole jar or half a jar, whatever you want. You could buy them with pits and chop them however you want. But that briny taste is going to bring out the flavors of the other spices and make it feel like a Spanish dish. So that is our number 1. Number 2, we are going to make a Middle Eastern version. For Middle Eastern version, I am going to use Wild Mountain cumin from Burlap and Barrel. This cumin, you are not going to find better cumin anywhere. It is handpicked in the mountains of Afghanistan, and it is really fabulous. And you will see here that cumin goes into a lot of spice profiles, and I use a lot of cumin in my household. You can see this one's almost empty. We're ready for another one of our cumin. So for our Middle Eastern, we're going to add cumin. We're going to add turmeric. We are going to add a smoked paprika, a regular paprika, or a hot paprika, depending what you like. I don't like a lot of heat in my food. I like lots of spices, but not necessarily heat. So I don't even own, I own a hot paprika. This is my hot paprika, and I might put a little of that in here and then a little bit of my regular paprika, but I really dislike smoke flavored, and I don't even own smoked paprika, so I wouldn't put that in. But if you love smoked and you have smoked paprika, that is what you want to put in this dish. And then the piece that's going to really sew this up so that it is tasting really Middle Eastern is you're going to put cured sumac in, which is a really unique flavor. used a lot in the Middle East, and this combination of the cumin and the paprika, turmeric, and the cured sumac is gonna come together as a really great flavor. And then I would serve this with a Greek yogurt on top of it. Now we're on to our third combination. Now we're going to go to Mexico. And here is where I'm gonna go ahead and put my Turkish oregano in, because as I said before, I don't have any Mexican oregano. But if you have Mexican oregano, we want to add that to our Mexican dish. And we are going to add chili powder. We are going to add ground coriander, and of course, again, our cumin. You can see why I run out of cumin so fast. I like my Mexican dish to have a little bit more tomatoey taste to it. So I could add a tablespoon of tomato paste to it, but what I do instead is I add some tomato powder to it. This is sun-dried tomatoes all ground up, and it really adds a nice different flavor, bringing out the tomato feel of that. What I will put on top of this as my topping is some cheddar cheese and maybe some sour cream. I could also even just make this into burritos. Heat up some burritos, throw them in the microwave, wrapped in paper towel, put them in for 30 seconds, take them out there nice and warm, put a scoop of your rice in, put some of your beans and rice and your cheddar cheese, roll it up, top it with some sour cream and a little bit of cilantro. It doesn't even look like any of the other meals that we have made that are beans and rice, but it is literally still just our beans and rice as the beginning of this. Now, you don't like cilantro, it tastes like soap for you. Anytime I talk about cilantro, leave it out, no big deal. Almost every one of these recipes that I researched said sprinkle parsley or cilantro over the top. So if I had in my refrigerator parsley or cilantro, I'd chop some up and put it on top, add a little color, add a little freshness to it. But you know what? If I don't have it, I am certainly not gonna sweat it. The other thing I could do with the Mexican one is I could squeeze some lime in it, or I could use a lime olive oil to give it another little pop of flavor that we expect to taste in Mexican food. Next, we are going to make a curry. This has a whole nother ingredient besides our spices. We're going to add our spices, which I'll tell you what they are in a minute. And then we're going to add a whole can of coconut milk. It can be low fat, it can be whole, whatever you have around, it doesn't make any difference. The whole's gonna be a little bit more better mouth feel, but I often use the low fat because I just don't want all that fat. And so for this one, I recommend a garam masala, but I don't have any garam masala right now. What I do have is a goan masala, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. As you're gonna hear over and over in these videos, I have dyslexia and I pronounce words in all sorts of crazy ways, and you're just gonna go with the flow with me. And if I really mispronounce it, I'll probably give you a hint of how it says in the dictionary that it's pronounced. But this blend of Indian spices is really awesome, and it's got turmeric and black pepper and cinnamon and ginger and cloves in it. So it's a really great combination to get a whole bunch of spices in that you would have to be putting a little pinch of each one, and that's just too hard. So we're gonna use this blend along with some more turmeric and some more cumin and a little bit of coriander. We're gonna mix all of that up. Because of our can of coconut milk, it's going to be more soupy of a beans and rice. And you might want to serve it with some naan alongside of it if you have it around. If not, the rice will soak up all that juice and goodness, and it will be really delicious. Our fifth spice combination is going to be from the Caribbean. The Caribbean tends to make very spicy foods, and this recipe calls for a scotch bonnet. Scotch bonnets, at least for me, are really spicy, and I rarely cook with them. But this recipe I found gave me a way to add a Scotch bonnet flavor without it being overpowering for me and my husband, who we just can't handle that really spicy spice. What they did is they just took a knife and they pricked the bottom of the Scotch bonnet and nestled it into the bean mixture so that the flavor comes out, but you're not overwhelming it. Now, say you like more spice, fine. Cut it in half. Take the seeds out because the seeds are where a lot of the heat is. You might want to wear gloves while you're doing that, and you certainly don't want to rub your eyes after you cut a Scotch bonnet. And then you could throw the two pieces in. Now, I have friends from Jamaica who would be like, Mara, this is still not hot enough. They might put 1 or 2 Scotch bonnets in, and they would mince them and cook them at the same time we were cooking the onions and the green pepper to really give it a very flavorful and very spicy taste. Then we are also going to add some thyme, and we are going to add a bay leaf. Now, Burlap and Barrel has done something really interesting. They have taken bay leaf, and I don't know how much you can see here, but they've ground it up so that I can just add 1/4 teaspoon of a bay leaf all ground up, and I don't have to go fishing it out later on. So I like to use the ground up bay leaf. And then finally, we are going to add a little bit of coconut milk to this one as well. Probably about 1/2 can and not a full can, because we don't want it to be as soupy and we still want it to be really flavorful, but that's going to make it a little bit more creamy and bring out the Caribbean taste. If you don't have coconut for milk for this one and you want to throw some cream in instead, that's fine. It's not going to be vegan anymore, but either it's the one with the cheese or the sour cream, so that's not a problem. It's all still vegetarian, and obviously you could use vegan forms of those. So those are our 5 different ways to make beans and rice. A Spanish version, a Middle Eastern version, a Mexican version, a Indian curry, and Caribbean version. Would you find these recipes and being made in these countries? Probably not, but the flavors profiles of those countries are going to come through, and every meal is going to taste really different for your family, and because you're putting different toppings on, it's going to confuse them so that they don't think you're serving them the same thing week after week after week, which you are, because rice and beans and an onion and a pepper and a can of tomato is inexpensive, fast to make. You saw how fast it took me to make this. The time it takes to make my rice is the time that it takes for me to make this whole meal and put it on the table for the family. I hope you had a great time learning how to make beans and rice. And I hope you noticed that the videos are getting a tad bit better as I go along. I know, I still need to work on how to do that cooking portion of it. That wasn't such a great part of the video, but still watching lots of videos myself, learning how. If you want to continue on my spice journey and learn where spices come from and see different ways to use different spices in the same recipe, why don't you go ahead and subscribe? It would make me so happy if I had subscribers. And I am looking forward to this spice journey, and I hope you're going to join me on it. That's it for today. Look for the next video. You never know where we're going to go on our journey. Have a great one.